Child molesters are hated in prison, just like they are hated in the community. It thus comes with no surprise that there have been countless reports of child molesters getting attacked, harassed, brutalized, and even killed by fellow inmates. And the story of Jonathan Watson is no different. Watson was just an ordinary inmate at the California prison when he took the law into his own hands, exacting vigilante justice against two child molesters behind bars. But the confession of Jonathan Watson is what shocked the entire nation. Be sure to follow through till the end to find out the full details of this thought-provoking story of a murderous confession that gripped the attention of the nation. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon to never miss an update whenever we post. So let's get started with the video. We all agree that jails harbor different people from different backgrounds and of course with different crimes and sentences. And while all inmates are guilty of one offense or the other, some are considered more violent than others, that they are looked at with so much contempt to the level that they are ganged on and murdered even in the full glare of prison guards. And this has kind of grown to become a culture in our prisons. The case at hand today is that of Jonathan Watson, a 41-year-old inmate who could not stand to see child molesters within the vicinity of the California Substance Abuse Treatment Facility and State Prison in the city of Corcoran, where he was held. Whether he just abhorred child molesters and sex offenders, I'm not sure, but what he did could possibly attest to that. It all started in January 2020, when Watson, a murderer convicted for life in 2009, was transferred to the California State Prison and housed in a dorm-style unit. And even though Watson opposed the decision to move him from a single-person cell to a dorm-style unit, the authorities couldn't listen to his demand. Worst still, he was housed in the same dorm unit with David Bobb, one of the child offenders at the facility. And Watson knew pretty well that the authorities were making a careless mistake by downgrading his security classification from level 3 to level 2, where he could easily mingle with other inmates. It didn't take long, and after a week-long stay at the prison, housed in a dorm-style unit, Watson just did the unthinkable, right inside the prison facility. After learning that David Bobb, 48, and Graham DeLuey Conti, 62, were serving life sentences for aggravated sexual assault of a girl under 14 years old, Watson, along with other inmates, started hating on them. According to Watson, through his public confession, what really intensified the anger among inmates is Bobb's decision to comfortably watch the kids' program, PBS Kids, in a shared space where all other inmates were. The inmates thought it was an insult for Bobb to be comfortable watching kids on a television show when, in a real sense, he was behind bars for molesting one. And so Watson decided to handle the whole situation for the rest of the inmates who were angered. The night before the attack, Watson was so disturbed he could not even sleep, knowing that a child molester somewhere was trying to mock him and other inmates. So, the next day, Watson packed his belongings, ready to move to the single-person cell. He went straight to the prison counselor at the facility requesting to be urgently moved to a single-person cell because he was likely to attack Bobb. And even though Watson thought this could act as a red flag to the prison officials to resolve the issue and move him back to the level 3 security classification, the authorities ignored him. What the authorities didn't know is that they were risking the life of Bobb and that of other inmates by dismissing Watson's warning that he could go violent. 2 hours later, and with no action from the authorities, Watson decided to take the law into his own hands and unleashed terror on Bobb. And do you know what he did? Well, Watson picked a walking cane belonging to a fellow inmate and used it to beat Bobb until he was almost as good as dead. But he wasn't surprised that even after brutally attacking Bobb, there was no response from the prison guards. And so, in an effort to not conceal anything, Watson decided to go and look for a prison warden to turn himself in. As he was walking out of the pod to search for the prison warden, he spotted Louis Conti, another child molester who had been convicted along with Bobb. And while still in an emotional state, Watson picked up a battle with Louis Conti and used the same cane to brutally beat him up. Still, this did not draw the attention of the prison officials. He therefore approached an officer himself to confess what he had done. At first, the officer could not believe him, because anyway, it was rare for an inmate to turn themselves in after committing an offense inside the correctional facility. But when he took the officer to the bloody scene, the officer was shocked to find Bobb and Louis Conti lying nearly dead with fatal head injuries. Bobb and Louis Conti were rushed to the hospital for immediate medication. Unfortunately, Bob died en route to the hospital, while Louis Conti succumbed to the injuries 3 days later at the local hospital. The next immediate action that the Corcoran prison took was to place Watson in segregated housing and restrict his phone privilege as the investigation of the killings took over. This heinous murder of child molesters, Bob and Louis Conti, made headlines across the nation, with the media and authorities trying to explore and investigate the circumstances surrounding Watson's shocking actions. Things fired up even more when Jonathan Watson made a written confessional letter to the public detailing the double homicide inside the walls of the Corcoran prison. This is after one news organization reached out to him for a phone interview, but he could only communicate via mail due to restrictions placed on him. Watson shocked the world by saying he did everyone a favor by murdering the 2 child molesters. He went ahead to affirm that he may try to kill again if he is housed with child molesters in the future. Well, considering that Watson is a lifer, convicted of first-degree murder and discharging a firearm causing great bodily injury or death, he has nothing to lose. And that means he may turn dangerous and harmful to other inmates. In fact, he wrote in his public confession saying, "Being a lifer, I'm in a unique position where I sometimes have access to these people and I have so little to lose." He assured everyone that he will plead guilty to both killings should the state take him to court. Honestly, we all blame the murder on the recklessness of the prison officers. Why did they dismiss Watson's warning? If they could have listened to him, most probably they'd have transferred him to a single-person cell and prevented the double homicide. However, the big question in everyone's mind is, why did Watson choose to do what he did? Did he think child molesters were a danger to society, even while incarcerated? Well, no one knows for sure, but his action will go down in books of history as one of the most violent acts within the walls of the prison. Such cases are usually linked to psychological issues and tough upbringing, and most definitely Watson might have had a tough childhood. In fact, looking at his written public confession, you can tell he really hates people who molest children. He described his hate for child molesters in a letter saying, "These people are every parent's worst nightmare. These families spend years carefully and articulately planning how to give their children every opportunity that they never had, and one molester comes and changes that child's trajectory forever." Indeed, child molesters and sex offenders are at high risk in prison facilities and need to be separated from the rest. But then, our prison facilities don't have enough space to offer safety to such inmates, even though they are aberrant even in the prisons. Well, regardless of your stand on the matter, it is clear that this case raises important questions about the safety of inmates and the responsibility of correctional facilities to protect vulnerable populations within their walls. As the case of Jonathan Watson continues to unfold, we are left with unsettling questions about the nature of justice and the lengths some inmates are willing to go to seek their own form of retribution. So there you have it, guys. The confession of Jonathan Watson is a wake-up call to our prison system to put in place the necessary infrastructure for the safe housing of child molesters and sex offenders. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more amazing content like this. Thank you for watching.